Good evening, everyone. This is Esisi Banda here. I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I said I'll be on at about 8 o'clock to come back to you and discuss on emotional intelligence. So today, for me, every day is a good day when I'm awake and I've got breath in my lungs. I think you're so tired of hearing me say that. And I thank the Lord for keeping us in this atmosphere of the coronavirus pandemonium or pandemic, whatever you want to call it at the moment. But I am happy that I've been given another chance to have a chat with you guys. Remember, we were speaking about emotional intelligence, and we were trying to answer whether emotional intelligence has been there all along, or whether it's something which just started possibly a few, maybe a few years when, as I said, hi Nyasha, thank you for joining us. As I said before that, I think and I believe emotional intelligence has been there as we were growing up. Though possibly I'll take the word emotions and possibly leave it out of there because it's something which was never discussed, or possibly which was never verbally spoken about, if I may say that. You could have your emotions and obviously you could keep your emotions to yourself. I think that is absolutely quite fundamental and helpful that you do that. So for me, as I said, as children, you would know how to behave or how not to behave, and you would have manners, and you are more aware of people around you. You know who you are supposed to greet as your mates or friends, or as your same age group, or whether they are adults, and how your respect changes according to whoever you are going to interact with. So as the contributors spoke about emotional intelligence being critical in how we relate to each other. So, I mean, relating appropriately is what is needed in the real world, but possibly we need to be able to ask ourselves in the world of technology, these days, in the gig economy, in the fast moving pace of life, are we able, or are we aware of what other people are feeling around us, or are we aware what our contributions are supposed to be in what they are doing? So those are the issues which actually come at hand, or come to mind when I talk about emotional intelligence, because it's very important for us to be able to understand the other person who is possibly sitting next to me, or who is working in the same office with me, or who's on the train, on the tube with me, if it's somebody like me who travels on public transport. And I know we always talk about space. People are invading my space. I think space is something which is talked about quite a lot these days. People need their space. You have gone into my space. You have invaded my space. It's all about my space, my space. So, that self-awareness, which I sort of introduced yesterday, is something possibly which people are looking at more possibly in an egocentric way, to see what can it benefit me in terms of me, the self. Instead, hi Dana, thank you for joining and thank you for watching. Thank you. We are talking on emotional intelligence. I don't know if you guys managed to catch up on what I did put in 2 days ago to introduce the topic on emotional intelligence. I know I've been running series on bereavement, grief and loss, and as I promised, I'm working on the PDF for that, just to put it out so that you guys can download it. Whoever wants it's going to be free, well, because we are just talking about helping each other. So I'm going to put it out on Facebook and LinkedIn, once it's ready, once I've done sort of revising and seeing that the words are all checked, the spellings and everything else, and the grammar makes sense. Because remember, some of us have to think in the Chewa language, translate it into the Shona language, and then translate it into English. At times it doesn't make sense at all after you go there. So, that's what's going to happen with this series. You might have missed the grief loss series. We're still dealing with questions which come out there, and emotional intelligence came out of that, with one of the nurses telling me about, having to utilize empathy in dealing with colleagues and patients on a COVID-19 ward. So those are issues which are quite real, and issues which we need to address in terms of how people are feeling about what's happening there. So if we don't have that awareness of others, and we dwell on what we think should be happening to us, that means we are not able to deliver a service, possibly as nurses. Now I'm talking like a nurse. As a nurse, we always were taught that you needed to have empathy, and empathy is... Hi Trish, thank you for joining us. We always taught you need to have empathy for you to be able to nurse. I also think, as I said, that I think emotional intelligence has always been around for a long time. And if you read what I did post out yesterday in terms of text, I talked about emotional intelligence maybe being around in the Old Testament time of the Bible. So, and that's quite a long time ago, although obviously the researchers in 1990 supposed to have started talking about and giving it a term. And I actually called it, from the Bible, we called it wisdom. Because wisdom, in the sense of, the Bible is wisdom to know when to talk, when not to talk, how to assist, and how to hold back. And if you had been following when I was talking about grief, loss, and bereavement, I was talking about at times you need people to exercise their emotional intelligence to give you space to grieve, because that's also, something which is needed for people to be able to say, am I able to give this person space for them to deal with their emotions, to understand what is going on in their life before I come with all solutions. So if you, then go back to, the generation where, for me, growing up in then Rhodesia, then it became Zimbabwe, and where I was talking about, when visitors come into the house, you just come and say, your greeting and leave the room before the eye started talking to you and telling you to actually get yourself out of this place. And then you would leave the elders, and if you meet the elders, you're playing there, you would stop and you say good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, whatever time it is, and then you let them pass. So those are the things which are, I call them manners, obviously. And then there was a person, Peter Salavoy and John May, who thought in 1990, let's give this thing a name, and they called it emotional intelligence. Now we are teaching people at work because it's relevant for workplace, it's relevant in leadership, it's relevant in relationships. That's the reason why I put it on here, because you remember Bara Hope social, it's all to do with social interaction and how we relate with each other, how we connect, and how we understand those connections. So that's why emotional intelligence works across the whole spectrum of life. So who is teaching emotional intelligence these days? Half the time we are teaching it in the workplace. I think possibly as parents, we need to nurture it as they start. So yeah, that's what I thought today we needed to talk about. So we'll talk about self-awareness on my next video. Tomorrow, possibly I'm going to post something on self-awareness in terms of text. Then we can start conversation. I appreciate you watching, and please can you contribute, write, post, whatever, and then let's generate talking. Good night, everybody. Keep well, keep safe, and remember to be grateful if you are awake and alive. Good night.